Board of Education, May 23rd, 2023, regular Board of Education meeting. Call to order is with me this evening is Mrs. Vitale, Mrs. Gerber, Mrs. Bernstein, myself, Mrs. Jacobson, Mr. Ace, Mrs. Maximilian, Mr. Peterson, Mrs. Kelly, and our superintendent, Mr. Testani. Everyone could rise and join us in the pledge of allegiance. Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you want to switch it to manual, turn it on.
Okay, public comment. If there are any members of the public who would like to come forward for public comment at this time, please feel free to do so. And Mr. Thank you. Just your name and address.
Hello,
That'll do it.
I'm Bob Smoller. I'm president of the Fairfield Education Association.
Maybe I'll.
Several months ago, I came before you to tell you that despite Herculean efforts, the new illustrative math curriculum wasn't working for students or for teachers. You were good enough to listen and give the teachers and administration a chance to make an adjustment. Since then, the department has undertaken the extremely heavy lift to make sure every student this year enjoyed a rigorous math experience while also rewriting the entire curriculum in a matter of months to make sure it is vertically and horizontally aligned, not only for the next several cohorts of students, but for years to come. While accomplishing this task involved the entire math department in all three middle schools and both high schools, I would be remiss in not acknowledging the incredible efforts of Jody Shannon, Sarah Singer, and Casey Sabella. The curriculum that you will be presenting to you tonight would not have been possible without their leadership, collaboration, facilitation, and extremely hard work. I'd also like to thank Superintendent Vistani, Dr. Zavajancic, and Dr. Rasmussen for giving the department the support, guidance, and time to get this work done. Having the curriculum ready for you today was a challenge to say the least, but I do believe we are in a much better place today than we were back in the fall. One other point I'd like to make is that we have a chance tonight to support a group of students that have been lost in the system for over 15 years. Every year we have 15 or more students sitting in algebra class all year long learning very little because they can't connect with the curriculum. If you approve the Foundations of Algebra class, we will finally have a course that will enable these students to enter their high school math experience on their terms, setting them up for a successful 4 years. I know I speak for the high school math teachers and administrators when I say that I implore you to approve this course. Thank you once again for hearing our concerns in the fall and giving us the time we needed to make the appropriate adjustments on behalf of our students. Thank you very much.
Anyone else would like to come forward? Okay, thank you. First, we have the math curriculum and resources.
Chair,
Oh, sure.
I just want to echo Mr. Smoller's sentiments about the hard work and dedication of this team of math folks led by this talented group of educators. I know it was a lot of work, but collectively they came together and they really did a fine job of presenting what I view and the rest of us as a top-notch curriculum for the district moving forward. So I just really want to thank them. I really appreciate their hard work and their dedication to their craft.
You guys can come forward. You might want to move the chairs over to the other side of the table. And I don't know if the board would like to go to the audience while we have this presentation so we can see it properly. Okay. There's a microphone there. Yeah. There's not a
Good evening, everybody. James Evajensic, Chief Academic Officer. And tonight we are here to present to you the Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2 curriculum. I'm also joined tonight by Ms. Jody Shannon, the Mathematics Department Chair at Fairfield Warren High School, Mrs. Sarah Singer, the Math Research Teacher from Fairfield Warren High School, and Dr. Dana Shevesky is also with us tonight and has been getting up to speed with the process and the documents. Along with the other math department teachers and leaders throughout the district, the math teacher leaders coordinated, drafted, reviewed, revised, and created the curriculum documents that are before you today. Before I begin, I want to thank them for their work throughout the course of this last school year in getting this presentation and these documents ready for you today. To go back to why we are here tonight, back in November 2022, the district and board made a right decision to reverse the course on the approved 2022 curriculum. Shortly thereafter, the secondary math department met with me and began charting a course forward to create a new curriculum for the core mathematics courses, including Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. In those discussions, we realized the current algebra entry point was a single Algebra 1 course for all students in high school. The department reviewed the trajectory, and after debate and research, decided that a Foundations of Algebra course would be beneficial and necessary for addition for Fairfield students and our program of study. Before you tonight are 6 curriculum documents. Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2, both in the honors and college prep form, and the Foundations of Algebra course, which we will discuss in more depth at the end of the presentation. Finally, you will see that beyond requesting approval by the board for the curriculum documents and the new course is a staggered implementation of core courses. This new curriculum works around the pre-advanced placement course framework. We are requesting a staggered implementation. If approved, students taking Algebra 1 next year in our middle and high schools will be instructed on the Algebra 1 document before you this evening. In the 24-25 school year, next year, or the year after the one going to start next year, those same group of students would be instructed on the geometry curriculum before you tonight. And finally, in the 25-26 school year, that same cohort of students would then naturally engage with the Algebra 2 curriculum before you tonight. This transition or staggered implementation will ease the implementation and remove gaps of content and skills for students experiencing a new curriculum. In addition, it will allow the department to facilitate professional learning on implementation for the core courses. You may notice I've also included the pre-calculus in this slide as 26-27. As you're aware, the current pre-calculus curriculum that was approved last year is still in effect and will be for the duration of the implementation plan. It is on this slide as a reminder that the College Board recently released an AP pre-calculus course. The department is still in discussion regarding it, and in the next or few upcoming years, it too may need revisions if adoption is warranted prior to the next curriculum cycle. These curriculum documents have 2 resources embedded within them on all of the documents before you tonight. The first is Illustrative Mathematics, which was approved by this board in 2022. It continues to be a resource for our teachers. The curriculum before you is not built for unit by unit, or lesson by lesson, for the IM textbook. Nonetheless, the resource does have some positive attributes that continue to be used by our mathematics teachers. It is helpful in planning problem sets, lesson activities, and some reinforcement activities. We will also be using, if approved, the pre-advanced placement framework. This framework was used to develop our local curriculum, again, that is before you tonight, for the 3 courses. So what is pre-AP? It is a framework developed by the College Board. It provides a consistent, coherent, and guaranteed framework for the content and skills in our Algebra, Geometry, and Algebra 2 sequence. The framework is built off of grade level and course-specific content and skills. It is backwards mapped from the final courses and standards in the series so that we can ensure all students are being instructed on the appropriate skills and content each year. Moreover, this is not an honors or an advanced framework. It is a framework purposefully designed to be open and accessible to all students. In fact, our honors curriculum that is before you in many ways goes beyond what the framework demands. Finally, the framework allows for checkpoints and common performance-based assessments that will allow rich discussions among our teachers regarding student performance across the common criteria. On the slide in front of you right now are the courses we are presenting on the left and the courses from which they are backwards designed. You may remember the district adopted about 2 years ago an Understanding by Design curriculum framework for all of our departments in our curriculum writing. The format of these 4 courses was devised in this same manner. The framework is grounded in research and allows local curriculum to determine the outcomes and then work backwards from there. It provides a guaranteed and reliable curriculum when implemented with integrity. Just one example up there shows that by completion of the pre-AP Algebra 2 framework and our local curriculum, students are better prepared for AP Pre-Calculus, AP Calculus AB, AP Statistics, AP Physics 1 and 2. Finally, our local curriculum, you will see that each course is made up of 4 unique units that build upon each other. In the curriculum documents, you will find the specifics for each of these units, including the content and the skills, the unit's essential questions and enduring understandings, of which we are presenting to you for approval. These are also on our website for public review. Our last course approval request is for Foundations of Algebra. This course emerged as a need for a small group of students. These students will be identified through the internal procedures of the district, include those who have been unsuccessful in our pre-algebra class. The vast majority of our students are successful in our middle school math sequence, including pre-algebra. However, there is a subset of students who require additional support, of which, when placed in a one-size-fits-all class of the traditional sequence, becomes frustrating. In addition, there are students who enroll in our school system as transfers from other districts and arrive to us having been enrolled in a pre-algebra class or course. These students have no natural entry point when registering in Fairfield at the high school. You may be asking, why not just offer a pre-algebra course? This course encompasses some, but not all of the pre-algebra curriculum. In addition, this course extends to algebraic standards in the course of which pre-algebra does not. Upon completion of this course, if approved, students would begin the natural sequence of the core mathematics courses that I previously spoke of. This course will not affect science placement, and the natural sequence of science courses will remain intact. This will be updated in our program of studies 24-25 if approved. Foundations of Algebra includes the core math needed for the subsequent chemistry course, including, for example, knowledge of exponents, two-step equations, and fractions. The department and I believe that this course will allow for the opportunity to hone in on necessary skills to be successful in our course sequence. Moreover, I have surveyed local districts in Fairfield County, their program of studies, and nearly all have a similar class offered, although naming conventions do vary. Some call it integrated math, general math, essentials of algebra, a standard pre-algebra class, or leveling procedures that carry out the same mission. You may also be asking, what about preparation for our high-stakes assessment, the SAT in high school? With the pre-AP framework, the majority of the content and skills for the SAT can be reached by the end of the proposed geometry course that we are presenting to you today. It is true that students will not take Algebra 2 until senior year, unless, of course, there is a double up of math for particular students after Foundations of Algebra. However, Fairfield's proposal in front of you tonight does not track students away from the core courses that we do believe are necessary. It catches students up and places them back on track for success. Before the discussion is open to questions, there are 2 additional statements about the AGA curriculum, or Algebra, Geometry, Algebra 2, that are necessary. First, the documents that you've seen and are posted will need minor edits so that the prerequisite course explicitly lists all of them as ors, and they are not to be seen as ands. Currently, prerequisite courses are listed, which can cause confusion to individuals to believe that they have to complete everything on the list in order to enter. And secondly, the grade levels for the courses will be edited to list all high school grades. Although the majority of students take these specific sequences in their respective grades, there are exceptions to this rule which will be captured in the documents. I will capture these changes in a memo to each of you and the public and repost the documents for you with those 2 edits. At this time, with the assistance of our mathematics teachers, leaders, and experts, and through the board chair, we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for the presentation. Are there, I'd like to start with any questions? Mrs. Kelly?
Nothing after the president. Thank you for that. It's been a lot of work. I just had 2 questions. I agree with what Mr. Smoller said, that there's a definite need for that class, and I'm excited to see that. However, and I think we all know this, that the children, the students who this is targeting, like, this problem just doesn't arise in 9th grade. So I was wondering if you could speak to what, if any, changes in the middle school curriculum you may see to try to, I don't want to say phase this out, we probably always need this class, but I just feel like 9th grade seems too late to address this issue to me, and I just didn't know.
No, thank you, Ms. Kelly. It is a great question. And sorry, my back's to one of the groups there. This is a very small group of students that have not been able to be successful even with our intervention. So you're right, we do have to start earlier, and we are starting earlier. And when we identify them, we know who they are really early on, and our middle schools are really working with them on the algebra skills and in the sequence. And it's still failing at some level. That is something we have to look at. We would love to phase this course out, to your point. We wouldn't want to have this course if we don't need it. And then there's this other subpopulation of students who come to us in this course that we need to be able to have a place for them to go. So agreed that middle school, we always have to continue to be working, and I would even say this goes beyond middle school to our elementary schools with some of the skills that we're seeing are deficits in those classes.
And then lastly, I know obviously this isn't something that you would add now, it's not here, but I just didn't know, there's always talk about kids who can accelerate by doubling up on that class. And in theory, while that's doable, nobody's going to do it. Very few people will do it. So I didn't know, I feel like, especially with all the talk about math acceleration in elementary schools, all that stuff, I didn't know if there was an appetite or if it was ever explored. I think there are some other districts who do some sort of 3-in-2 program where you take Algebra 1 geometry and Algebra 2 in 2 years. I know there's a lot of debate on whether or not those are considered honors classes, not honors classes, how they're weighted. That is well beyond my pay scale. I just thought that that is something that would, it sounds like to me, a better option for math acceleration than telling kids, well, you can just take algebra 1 and geometry at the same time, or it just doesn't seem, I just didn't know if this seemed like a perfect place to kind of talk about that.
I have a daughter who's in that exact program at a different school who accelerated later than most, so it's been part of our discussions as a department to the leaders, but I think our primary focus in putting this forward was providing the courses that we currently have, and then our biggest need was for those kids that are just continually not succeeding and then not showing up because they don't experience any success. I think going forward, that is an option. I, again, as a mom of a kid that's in that program, would love to see, because we have late bloomers, or we have people that come in that can take over the course of 2 years a shortened geometry with maybe not AP level preparation, but an honors level track of algebra and algebra 2 to put them in the same spot to have an opportunity to take a regular calculus course. We've brought them up in discussions. They just haven't made it to this stage yet, but I really appreciate you welcoming it, and I think we can move towards that eventually.
I would very much welcome it, just so you know.
I'm in. Anyone else? Mrs. Mexican,
Okay, thank you. Is just confirming that in terms of this implementation that while we're aligning to the as a pre-AP, that's also completely consistent with the curriculum expected for the SAT.
Yes, and they are from the College Board.
I'm sorry.
It is a College Board framework, yep.
Okay. And then my other question, I just want to thank you for bringing forward this Foundations of Algebra course. I think it's wonderful. I know there have been a few staff members who have brought it up over the years as something that they're desperately seeking and didn't get traction on it. So I'm very thrilled that our staff was receptive to it and then went forward with it. I did have a couple of questions about it. Is this Foundations of Algebra a regular, the time allotted to it? Is it scheduled like other math courses, or is there extra time for math?
No, it is scheduled like other courses as a 1.0 credit.
Okay, so I guess it was 1.0 credit. I just want to make sure there are no minis that are extra support.
There are not.
Okay, and I raised it only because if there had been, I would have wanted a discussion about the credit, because we did that with science. So thank you. And that's it for me. Thank you so much.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to follow up on that. So, and pardon my ignorance, but how does that work with the math workshops then? Is that, so they wouldn't be part of a workshop, these students? Or-
No, they would not. That would be with the algebra class, and that is more working as an intervention with the algebra curriculum.
Sure.
Sorry, really quick, I couldn't read my handwriting. So we are not offering this for the 23-24 school year?
If approved, we would be offering this for the 23-24. It did not make it obviously into a program of studies, but it would be a very select group of students who it wouldn't be something you'd sign up for necessarily. This is something that we look into the data for. So if approved, yes, to your answer, 23-24 we'd implement.
Good, I'm glad we don't have to delay here. And of course, you said one other thing I wanted to know about is that how has the criteria been defined, or how are they being measured in a, again, I'm not interested so much in the transfer student, that's obviously, you're doing that based on a transcript, but how are we evaluating our own students to make this recommendation?
So we want to make sure that they've been unsuccessful in pre-algebra, but that it hasn't been unsuccessful because of, let's say, a behavior issue or something else, like we haven't done any homework, or we've missed tests and therefore have failed the class but still have the ability. Those kids we would want to work with differently than students who are unsuccessful through a number of internal indicators with the teachers at the middle school. They are also in touch with, and I'll ask Ms. Singer to come up as well, with high school department chairs in leadership there to make sure that the right students are in the right class.
Yeah, I've been working with the MRTs at the middle schools, and together we've been looking to identify which students would meet the criteria for the course. And like you said, it's based on their skill level and not a behavior like, missing homework and attendance. It's based on skills.
Guernsey?
Thank you for this presentation. I'm just wondering, I don't know if you mentioned this, what is the approximate number of students that you would imagine would be in this program next year?
The last time we looked, which was a few weeks ago, it is fewer than 10 in each building.
Fewer than 10. Okay. I'm thinking about how we're getting the students, even though it's a small number, to the place where they're experiencing the challenging curriculum that we want to get them to, and thinking about them just taking the 1 credit in math and wondering if you considered extending the math opportunity, like at the high school level, instead of taking it every other day, that it would be more math, kind of, you know, something about the 3 and 2, or another way of combining it so they're not starting off behind and never catching up and not meeting those marks to score as well as they could on the SAT and you know, the other assessments.
So we did look at having students take it every day, or you know, double dosing, some folks call it. You know, one thing I will say about the course is we all want students to experience a challenging curriculum. Right now, it is challenging to frustration, and then it's repeated a lot of times until the skill is met. So we do believe this course is challenging for these students to get them back on track for the Algebra 1 Geometry Algebra 2 sequence, so that we're not in a vicious cycle of either retaking courses or being completely frustrated by math and not able to continue forward in the sequence in order to learn those skills that are needed for the SAT or for life.
Thank you. So just, I guess, to share my concern about this, it's that if a student is going through this sequence of curriculum, they're probably not graduating high school with pre-calculus. And that's a concern of mine because it limits their choices that they might have for different colleges. So can you help me understand that?
Yeah, you know, what I would say is, and I don't have the data in front of me, that very few of these students are completing pre-calculus currently, and are not doing well in the courses up to that as well because of the lack of foundational skills. I saw Mr. Cabana come up, so I know he has some information on this as well.
Thank you, good evening. You know, I think one of the driving factors of the course is making sure students don't fail their freshman year. Because what's happening is the students are currently misplaced. If you're misplaced, you're going to fail your freshman year and have to repeat Algebra 1, if not take it over the summer, which is not as extensive as it would be during the school year. So I just, you know, our goal with really the designing this course is to meet students where they are. You know, not everybody is able to take, you know, a specific level at a specific time. But if students are supported the right way, they can get their love for math back and be able to move forward and progress through the scope and sequence. And one of the most difficult things we deal with is students who just turn off from math because they failed it or had difficulty so many times. And it's hard to build that stamina back up. So if students are appropriately placed, the idea is to encourage them through math and they can get that love of math and love of learning back in order to put them in the proper place to be successful. I just wanted to reiterate something that Ms. Smaller said, and Mr. Zavichansik, is that you know, Jody and Sarah have done a lot of time and effort in looking at different subsets of students and data on students to try to put the best curriculum forward that will make our students be successful. So I just wanted to add that plug for them as well. Thank you.
Sarah Tyler?
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Cabana, for those comments. I really, I really appreciate structuring this class and for those students who are struggling. There's a lot of anxiety that comes with math, especially when you can't get it as fast as your peers. I think this opportunity to have a class that may be a smaller group with some more individualized attention can give them the foundation that they need to move forward. Knowing that not all students take these math classes for the SATs. And not everybody is looking to go to college. but a strong foundation in math that can take them through their careers is just as important. So I really think this is great, and I want to thank you guys for including it and really thinking about what that group of students needs to get them to where they need to be comfortable succeeding in high school math.
I have a couple. On the implementation plan for next year, our rising 8th graders that would be in Geometry 1H, they will be in the same course that we have now based on this implementation plan, correct?
That's accurate.
Okay, so for the current 7th graders who are in pre-algebra now, who will then take Algebra 1H in 8th grade, is that just looking to make sure that what they're getting in the 7th grade current class will align with the new Algebra 1H, but there isn't a gap there. Are we ready for that, please?
There is not a gap. They will go to the Algebra 1H as the high school course.
Okay. The last thing on the presentation was the very last sentence when you said currently enrolled in pre-algebra. I assume that means in high school, not middle school.
That is accurate.
Okay, so they're currently in pre-algebra in high school. Okay, thanks. I had submitted a few questions. One of the concerns for me was the lack of access to science in 10th grade based on our current, I'm holding the line in like we actually have it here. They weren't going to be able to access science, right? Because they all require Algebra 1 every single sophomore class. So what I'm hearing is that it won't change for next year because this will be the first year of the course with foundations. However, for the 24-25 programs of studies, the prerequisites for the chemistry courses will change.
That is accurate.
And they will change to be still Algebra 1, Algebra 1H, or this foundations course.
Correct. It will be listed as a prerequisite.
And I presume we worked with the science department, and we know that what they're getting will be covered.
Yeah, so we met with some of the chemistry teachers to make sure that the skills that they need for chemistry and physics were covered in the course. So it was percents, exponents, equations, which we're all covering in the foundations course. So if they take foundations, then they'll be all set for chemistry. While they're taking chemistry, they'll be taking Algebra 1, which is then the prerequisite for physics.
Awesome. Just wanted to thank you for that piece. I know you're going to send us some edited documents. That would be very helpful in terms of some of the prerequisites and the grades. I just wanted to make sure that the Algebra 1 course, I assume that that's going to go 7 to 12 then, right? Algebra 1H.
It will go 7 to 12, and the other courses will go to 12 as well.
Okay. And then the other one that I had a question on was geometry, because I didn't hear you mention that. That's also going to go
8 to 12.
8 to 12.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we have that's just before the June 13th meeting. We'll have these edited.
I will update them tomorrow and send the memo out so that it's recorded of what was edited on the website, so that the documents you are voting on at the next meeting are accurate.
So going forward, Algebra 8 is going away as a title.
It is currently listed for students both on their transcript and in Infinite Campus as Algebra 1H in the middle school.
Okay, and same with Geometry 21 to Geometry 1H. So all the titles and everything are going to just align.
The titles will align on transcripts, program of studies, and curriculum documents.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, thank you so much. All right, moving on to approval of the 2023-2024 budget adjustments. Recommend a motion that the Board of Education approve the 2023-24 budget adjustments. Can I get a motion, please? Mr. Issa, seconded by Mrs. Maxon Kennelly. Any discussion? Public comment? Back to the board, all in favor? Mrs. Kelly? I'm sorry? Okay. All right, Mr. Peterson, Mrs. Maxon Kennelly, Mr. Issa, Mrs. Jacobson, Mrs. Guernsey, Mrs. Gerber, Mrs. Vitale, and Mrs. Vitale in favor, opposed? Mrs. Kelly? Motion passes. Thank you. All right, adoption of policies. Adoption of policy 6140 curriculum and policy 6140 curriculum and administrative regulations. Recommend a motion that the Board of Education adopt policy 6140 curriculum and policy 6140 614OAR. Can I get a motion, please? Mrs. Maxine Finelli, second. I'll second. Mrs. Jacobson. Any discussion?
I received no questions on this. Again, the idea of what we were trying to change here was to take away the position we were in almost annually of needing to re-vote on this curriculum based on state statute changes, and to have language that deferred to whatever the state regulations are, whatever the state statute language is at that moment. So, but again, I received no other questions.
Mrs. Maxine Finelli. Board members? All right, any public comment on this? Back to the board, all in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Adoption of policy 5118.1, homeless children and youth. Recommended motion that the Board of Education adopt policy 5118.1, homeless children and youth. Can we get a motion, please? Mrs. Gerber, seconded by Mrs. Vitale. Any discussion?
Again, no questions on this. This is just simplifying it down to that paragraph that's on the final page. And again, this was brought forward at the recommendation of staff.
Okay. Any public comment? Back to the board. Yes, back to the board. All in favor? Yes, in favor. That's hard to see, you guys. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, next. Deletion of policy 6142, basic instructional program. Recommended motion that the Board of Education delete policy 6142, basic instructional programs. Motion. Mrs. Maxine Finelli, seconded by Mrs. Gerber. Discussion.
Once again, just a reminder that this policy we considered redundant with 6140. We actually can't, and staff could not tell us what was meant to serve as the difference between the two, and so whenever we get rid of redundancy, we do, and thus this motion to delete. And actually, that we did confirm with Kate that it was perfectly fine to do this.
Any public comment? Back to the board, all in favor? The motion passes unanimously. New business, first reading of policy 3000, goals and objectives for non-educational business operations.
So first, I just want to, and actually Mr. Peterson may want to speak to this. This is something that he and Finance Committee brought to policy to request the addition of such a policy. And I want to thank Mr. Peterson for doing a lot of the legwork for the policy committee members of bringing us a variety of options. And then we did the wordsmithing and boiled it down to the draft that is before you tonight. And so this, again, ours was more of a language work, but actually I would invite Mr. Peterson if he could speak more to the motivation behind this and the role it's expected to serve.
So thank you, and I really appreciate the policy committee's work on this. This is something that we discussed in the Finance Committee a while ago, and I have been very busy with the calendar, so I appreciate the time. My initial thought about this kind of came up as an idea when we were having discussions about operational efficiencies and structural change. Just looking at school districts around us in terms of their policy manuals, one of the things that I noticed was that there are copious policies dealing with educational goals and generally not so many dealing with operational goals. But there is policy 3000 in a lot of our surrounding districts that probably from an old cave exemplar that has been adapted by various districts to suit their own individual needs. And basically just talking about what are best practices so that we can have an idea of best practices for such things as accounting and planning and strategic thought. Just as a statement of principles, I thought it was lacking in our policy manual, and it's a good compliment in my eyes to the educational goals, which obviously should be paramount in our policy manual, but this is a good adjunct to that.
Okay. So I said, Mrs. Maxine-Kennelly, if there are any questions, to direct them to you. In the meantime, this will be on with the next agenda for a vote. Any board discussion or questions at this time? Okay. Facilities and summer maintenance projects, update, Mr. Papa George.
Is that better? So, good evening. I know you got in the Friday packet, I believe last Friday or Friday before, a list of the projects that we have anticipated for this summer and starting as soon as the next couple of weeks. There's approximately 33 projects on there. Some of the big highlight ones, as you all know, is the Ludlow High School scoreboard, which is ongoing and has a new estimated completion date of the end of June at this point, barring any other setbacks with supply chain issues. This is due to the electrical components needed that were ordered in February and are still unavailable. We were told they were going to ship in March. We would have them in April, then we were told they were going to be shipping mid-May, and now they are shipping middle to end of June at this point is what their new estimated ship dates are. So that's the reason for the delay in that project. A couple other highlights here are the new bleachers for the Ward High School baseball softball field we're going to be putting in, and included in that is going to be an area of ADA accessibility for wheelchairs or seats for people with disabilities. That's another project out there. Another big project down here that we're looking to move forward with sooner than later is the Sturgis Field rebuild out and resurfacing. The anticipated project is to remove the current field as is, regrade, laser grade for drainage, and also to eliminate some of the hazards on that field. There were some, we've had some people get hurt over the years playing on that field, so this was a big safety concern that was brought to our attention, so we were going to move forward with that one this summer as well. Yes?
Sorry, can you point out where that is on the document?
Yes. Give me 1 second. If I brought my glasses, I'd find it faster.
RLS?
No,
Did you say
it's
Sturgis?
Sturgis. Second page. Oh, yep. Sturgis Park.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I have it highlighted on mine, and I don't think it was highlighted here, so I went out. Some other big projects we're working on this year are we're going to be doing a lot more paving and painting throughout the district. Two things that kind of get neglected over the years as money is needed for other projects and allocations, so we've moved it out of those two accounts. So this year we felt it was a good year to get a good start on some of the neglected areas throughout the district. That's really it, the list. If you had any specific questions about the projects, happy to answer.
Mrs. Madison County.
Just one question. On page 3, the fourth one down, can you just remind me again, because I feel like we're talking about deja vu of seeing the reference to new renovation of the concession building on the second floor for football, one road for Fairfield High School, which I believe we've approved, cut back, approved. It's
So that is correct. We've approved, we've cut it back. We're still looking at how we're going to accomplish that project. It's become kind of a larger project than originally anticipated.
it's become what?
Quite a larger project than originally anticipated. This storage building that you're looking out for, it says outdoor storage, that is for the drama department. It has nothing to do with athletics. We've been asked to provide some storage area for off of the auditorium in the front of Ludlow High School, so we're looking at a shed in the area between the auditorium walkway out on the far left and the retaining wall for where the generator sits. So it'd be a storage area out there for props, supplies, paint. The classroom that's currently used for that stuff is overflowing. A lot of it is stored on the actual stage itself. So when there's activities on the stage, it takes a few days to actually move all the stuff off so the stage can be used so that they can bring it back on for storage again.
And I hate to say this, I'm having a hard time with the microphones. terms of understanding, hearing, I didn't hear how you made the segue from the concession building to the outdoor storage facility.
So that's two different projects that you're talking about.
I didn't talk about the second one. I was only asking about the concession building. That's why I don't understand why you jumped to the storage.
Oh, I'm sorry, because on the third one down, it says outdoor storage facility for drama department. That's what I was looking at. I apologize. I'm sorry.
It's not on our end.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know why this is the same. Unless just because I
appreciate learning about that. I didn't object to that. It was, I didn't understand what the connection was.
I think I may have blown mine up, so I may have more on my page than you. So I'm looking where you are. Driveway. New renovation of concession building, second floor, football locker room.
Yes.
So that, and your question is where are we
So
seeing that?
we have seen this multiple times and we have approved it, and then it has not moved forward. And I was just looking for you to recapture one more time why it didn't move forward, what's preventing it from moving forward. Are we going to be seeing it again? Because I believe you made the case for the need.
There is still a need for it. It's just been established that while working with architects, the AD and the principal from the building, it's a larger project than what we initially anticipated. To do the build out of the second floor is not going to be an easy build out. There's a lot of code issues with the building itself, so we've gone from about a $100,000 retrofit to about $1 million build out for the building, so that's why it came off of the radar so that we can establish the true cost of this project and what is entailed and what is needed for it to bring the whole building up to code, get the storage that's needed, the changing areas that are needed, and the workout area that is being looked at for adding out to there as well. As part of that, I don't know if Mr. Castani wants to mention the build out of the second floor during this summer's projects for the bathrooms.
Yes, so working with the athletic director and the principal, there were two bathrooms, two current bathrooms that were scheduled as part of the renovation that are in close proximity to two other bathrooms, right around the corner. This is in the main building. So we came up with the idea, and everyone seems to be on board with, rather than renovating those two bathrooms for probably equal or we're anticipating slightly less cost, we'll be able to add square footage by taking that bathroom space to the adjoining small fitness room, which will now create one large weight room and another room for cardio and auto machines, which will be more conducive to the athletic program. So we're just waiting on some final cost analysis, but we think that it's not going to exceed what the current budget is, and it will also provide the school and the athletic department with what they need. The school is willing to give up the two bathrooms in exchange for having a more appropriate weight room for athletics and for physical education.
First, I just want to say I think that sounds outstanding. I'm delighted to hear that. I didn't know if Mr. Hatzis wanted to speak to it. That's not down. I think that sounds fabulous. Thank you.
I come up with a good idea once a year.
Thank you, Ms. Maxinelli. Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the second floor of the concession stand. I wanted to assure the board that the increase in price was not caused by our request changing. It was the architect telling us about mostly the ADA accessibility changes that would have to be made, and that definitely changed the dynamic of the project itself. You know, we still are in a lot of need for storage for our athletic department, and the same with the weight room. I know many of you have been on some tours of the two high schools and looking at some equity issues regarding the facilities. You know, the footprint is the footprint of the building, and we did the best we can when we did the original renovation back in 2004. But this, I think, was a great idea. The staff was on board in terms of, you know, the bathroom use, and
while it might be a little less convenient for maybe students in the music wing, there's a bathroom that's not that far away, right down the hall from the cafeteria, so we don't think it'll be a major negative impact on the students at all. And it's one less area we have to worry about, frankly, for some of the activities that happen in bathrooms that we generally don't like to see. So, it works out.
Thank you.
And then a quick follow-up on the concession stand, and speaking of bathrooms, are the bathrooms outside a part of that? Are those two single stall items?
Part of which,
The concession stand vision?
yes, they would be. And that, part of that as well is, like I said, it wasn't as much just a request, but to bring the building into code compliance. And so if you have a 1,000 person stadium, to a men's room and a ladies room, single stall, don't really fly for compatibility for that many people.
Yeah, that's great. I'm happy to hear that. Mr. Peterson?
I just have a very quick esoteric kind of question. You mentioned the area for the drama storage under the bleachers. If I remember from my last tour there were some other cargo spaces under there, storage spaces.
Not under the bleachers. We're talking about a completely separate area. I apologize for confusing the two. This is outside the auditorium, right to the left of the building itself, between the building and the generator there.
All right, so then that obviates my question. I'm sorry, I misunderstood what you were saying.
Mrs. Italian?
Just to, as a follow-up on the outdoor concession stand, we talked about this a little bit in the facilities committee. Just for the public, the pricing on this list is not accurate in terms of what that cost is going to be. I just think it's important if anybody looks at this, that the two 16, 18, I want that bigger print copy that you have. The project is going to be costing significantly more for the work that needs to be done in that building, which is why it has not moved forward at this point. I think the original estimate was $190,000 that the board first approved. I'm happy to hear that you're still looking at it. The bathrooms definitely need to be done. So just happy that it's still on the radar, but just want to call to everyone's attention that it's not going to cost what it's on this sheet.
Mrs. Kelly?
Hi. I don't know if this is more for you or for Mr. Boyce. If you could just walk me through these columns and what they are, because as far as internal transfers, board transfers, end of year spend out, I just want to make sure that I know. I just want to know where the money, where it's coming from. So I understand what the board had approved budget column is. That kind of self-explanatory to me. When we get to internal transfers versus board transfers, that's where I'm starting to get a little fuzzy. If the internal transfers, if that's what we're referring to when we say that's in the same major category, that's what that is, you're shaking, yeah, okay. And then, so board transfers is anything that we transferred into maintenance outside of the, okay, so if I'm looking at that, so far, that's a total of about $1 million that we added to maintenance. I'm not questioning anything, I just want to make sure when I read this, I'm reading it correctly. So we've transferred in $1 million. So that $359 that I'm seeing in internal transfers is not extra money we spent on maintenance. That is just money we moved around in maintenance. Okay. And then the end of year spend out. I guess I'm confused about that number versus the board transfer. So that's an additional $1 million that hopefully we will transfer in, or that what is the difference between the board transfers and the end of year spend out is what I'm a little fuzzy on.
So the end of year spend out, I guess you see on here is the $400,000 for the Walter Fitzgerald kitchen, the paving and painting, which is all that money was used from those projects, painting, paving, was used to do the internal transfers that you see to cover costs throughout the year, and then so that when we were approached with some money that we could use for painting or use in maintenance, we transferred it back into those accounts to cover what we had to transfer throughout the years. As I mentioned earlier, those are the accounts we kind of hit when we run into projects or unforeseen costs. So we pulled from our painting budget, we pulled from our paving budget. So now that we were offered some additional money at the end of the year, we're reestablishing those accounts so that we can get what we had originally planned to do done with them.
The only difference, I'm so short. That last column is because we presented at the, I'm sorry I was late, so I don't know if this was talked about earlier, Finance Committee, that we are projecting roughly $1 million surplus that will come out in the Q4 in the utility accounts related to two major things. One was a warm winter, and the second was lower rates than were budgeted. So as a result of that, it wouldn't require transfers from the board for Angeles to spend that money, not a vote for transfers, because it's within the same major category. But that's a possible option that he was bringing out to you for a year-end spend out, which happens in June at our June meetings.
So in an ideal world, if that did happen, you're saying that would get lumped into the internal transfers category? We're not moving money in from other.
Yeah, so essentially, like, the internal transfer line is like Angeles' own project, so every year as things come up, he's got to fund them internally. In addition, in the major maintenance category, there's a utilities account. That utilities account is that last column. We always wait until, right, like we get a little further, because now we have the experience of all the bills from winter, and then we can project out May and June better now. So in other words, yeah, the first column is what he did within his own categories. Second column is what the board authorized transfers, external. Yeah, third column is that utility surplus possibility.
Which would be considered an internal transfer. Okay, fine. I was just trying to add things across and add things across, and I couldn't get there. But thank you for that. Mrs. Gerber.
Yeah, thank you. I hate to beat a dead horse, but just back to the scoreboard for a second. So I believe you said that, I just want to clarify, because on here it says, under the estimated date of completion, estimated delivery by the end of May. Are we still expecting that, or is that?
That has changed as well.
That has been changed since this was printed out.
The whole date is printed, has moved since this printed. We just received an update at the end of last week after this went out.
Okay, so the delivery is now going to be the end of June?
Delivery is expected at the end of June. Progress is still being made on it. There's training coming up, I believe, next week for the operational side of it, how to control and operate the scoreboard. The footings have been placed in the ground, piping has been done. My understanding is, I don't want to promise anything, but we should see steel start to go up in the next week or two for the framing, for the support structure. So progress is still being made. The letter, I've got some photos I can share if you like. The letters for Fairfield Ludlow have been punched, and now we're in the paint shop. So everything is around the scoreboard is getting done. It's just a matter of the actual two pieces that have been delayed are the physical board itself and the transformer that actually powers the scoreboard.
Okay, thanks. So I guess the second part of my question then is, so assuming that this delivery date does stay at the end of June, how long will it be after it arrives that it will be complete?
They expect 2 to 3 weeks from on-site to finish.
So that would be like near the end of July. So we're still talking about.
I apologize. So when I say delivery date, I mean delivery to us as completed. So they're saying first to second week in June. By the end of June, we should have an operating scoreboard.
Oh, okay.
Delivery to us. I apologize if I was confusing on that.
Yeah, I'm just a little confused on that. And then the other question too, just in terms of the grant money that we received, where has that been received or?
So we provided all of the appropriate documentation to the, I think it's Department of Environmental Protection. That was the pass-through that was giving us the funds for the state. And we're just waiting. We haven't received it yet, but they do have everything in hand, and I'm assured that we should receive the funding before the end of the fiscal year. The last piece that we had to provide was from the town, an assurance of some sort that the first select woman could enter into contract on behalf of the town, so we did provide that as well.
So we've done that part. So it's where everything that we or the town needed to do to get this money has been done, and now it's just waiting on the state.
Yes, yeah, it was a risk assessment, a scope and sequence, a budget, and yes, everything's with them at this point, and we're just waiting to hear back.
And then once the money comes back, does that come directly to us? Does it have to go through the town? How does that work?
It does go through the town, and so I don't know the mechanism that we would have to take to receive it at the Board of Ed. We have to work through that just like we did with the FEMA funds.
Okay, and would there be any like votes or anything that need to be done, or is it just a matter of logistics, just getting the?
Initially, I didn't think so, but because of how it happened with the FEMA funding, I'm not sure. I can get back to you and update you at the next board meeting and find that out. Yeah, so I apologize. Statutorily, it wouldn't be required, but they did decide that the FEMA funds, even though statutorily it wasn't required to go through the three bodies, which they may do that again with this funding.
So there's still a possibility that happening. I guess my concern is just that if it has to go through all the other town bodies, depending on when the money comes, that could, I know you said you want to get it by the end of the fiscal year, but.
Yeah, we can set up a receivable for that because we have a reasonable expectation that we'll receive it. And so it wouldn't impact us from in that perspective, but we would certainly want to receive it sooner than later so that the receivable isn't hanging open for a long period of time.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Town.
The low reconfigured driveway to accommodate additional student staff parking, is that what driveway? Is that the Webster driveway? Because that paving was never done, right? That was what was.
Far right side of the building. If you drive by during any school day, you'll see staff park on the grass at the end of the driveway there. So the thought is to widen that driveway to allow for angled parking in from the road.
So the first driveway coming up, going next to Webster Wing or?
Webster, furthest driveway, all the way down, yeah.
Okay. What you requested 2 years ago that we never completed it? Okay. Just want to clarify that we're just crossing things that were previously requested, that it's being addressed now, that these are not new items, they've just been on hold. Thank you.
Sturgis Park, when you say resurface the playing field, are you talking about the softball field?
The practice field, so it's where the ADs do football, soccer, lacrosse, the grass area at the bottom of the large sled riding hill.
Even though it's a Parks and Rec property, we do that. I understand the softball field, but we do. I don't remember seeing Sturgis Park on our projects before. Has that been the case before?
It has not been the case before. We felt that it would be as a good partner to the town to do this because it is our students that majority use it, and we've had injury reports over the years at that park from our students, so that's why we felt it was a good opportunity to get this taken care of before we have any more injuries.
So is that going to be customary? We should have a conversation about that in the future. In terms of all of the library properties or town properties, and if there's a change in philosophy going forward, versus do you anticipate this just being a one-off?
We can have a conversation further, I do.
So we anticipate this being a one-off simply because we have been notified of several injuries. Now, once we're on notice, we are legally bound. If we don't do anything about it, if another kid gets hurt, legal ramifications could be a lot more expensive than $115,000. That's our thinking on it, is that we're aware of our safety. We could just ignore it and wait for the.
Could you turn it?
Well, I said that today.
And I was just going to say.
Your assistant asked me that today.
We did speak to Anthony about could it be turf. I guess it's something with that hill that prevents us from turfing it. So if we didn't have sled riding, I guess we could turf the field.
Oh.
That cutting into that hill is apparently not allowed in how the land was given to the town.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mrs. Town.
Just, are there any other town fields that our students are using that potentially are also a safety hazard? And who makes that determination? Because I appreciate wanting to make sure that our students are playing on a safe field, but one line could be just going to Parks and Rec or making a request for this funding from other town bodies, being that this is really somewhat out of our purview. I'm not saying to do that, but just want to make sure that this isn't, that there's not issues in other locations.
So as you know, we do use other fields. We use baseball and softball fields that are town fields. I do know the town did quite a bit to clean up the baseball field that our Ludlow team uses at the end of last year and the beginning of this year. So that field was addressed over the end of one season, beginning of the next. The softball field, Tungsters, are in good shape. We have a continuous meeting with the town and the groundskeepers. We meet every other Wednesday morning to discuss conditions for fields, and this one has just come up a couple times now at this point.
Thank you. Is there any update on our LMS, by the way, since the meeting was held, Mr. Testine, do you know?
No, nothing yet from the lighting folks as to the suboptimal lighting charge that was given for them to look at. But we are waiting, and I'll reach out tomorrow to see if Anthony did get any, at least unofficial feedback on what that would look like.
Okay, my last question is perhaps from Mrs. LaVoy is on the requisitions that the PO issued. Since these are 22, 23, do you anticipate all of these purchase orders being processed in time in order to be within the fiscal year, or do we have some leeway after that time frame? Just the status of the POs, basically, and like the time you're tracking.
Yeah, so Angela's has really good staff, and they've gotten all the quotes ahead of time, and the quotes are live and ready when we're ready to do them. He's already reached out to our partners. They're either on state contract, town bid, or available for us to make purchases. So we're in good shape in that respect this year. And were we to decide to proceed with these, yes, we could get the purchases through it, meaning the requisitions through to turn into purchase orders in time for Angels to start those projects. Yeah, so yes.
Just real quick, kind of piggybacking off the whole turf and field and stuff. The field in the front of Ludlow High School that I believe that the field hockey, they use it for a lot of things.
Yes.
I forgive my ignorance, is that town or ours?
Well, they are all town fields and town buildings, but we do maintain and control that field.
Because with our, what seems to be a superfluous budget here, I didn't know if there was any talk of turfing that space.
We have not talked about turfing that space recently. Originally, it was talked about. One of the concerns with turfing it would be that because of the Roger Ludlow Middle School field being turned into turf, we had to move our javelin and shot put throwing from that field, so that now takes place on that front field. So it's very hard to throw javelins into a turf field.
And I think our hope is with Marlon Master that move forward that the girls that play on the front field will move off the front lawn, hopefully. That's the plan. That would be the case, that lawn would no longer be a surface for them. But I appreciate the question. Go there. Okay, anyone else? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, discussion and action to help address potential teacher shortages. For the motion, this is just something that we do for our bylaws, our reminder to the board, in order to have Board of Education members, relatives be able to apply for employment with our schools. That the recommended motion of the Board of Education allow persons related to a board member to apply and be employed by the Fairfield Public Schools as substitute teachers and substitute paraeducators for the 2023-2024 school year. Can I get a motion, please? Mr. Asa, seconded by Mrs. Ritelli. Thank you. So again, just to do the beep season, we've been doing this every year. Last year it was just for teachers. We did check this year per request with Human Resources to specify substitute paraeducators, so you see that new for this year, just to be explicitly clear. We need both teachers and paraeducators here. So is there any questions on this item? Mrs. Vitale.
Are there any other positions potentially that a family member could fill that we should include? Just so, you know, we're not coming back to the board again. I appreciate.
Well, I think from my perspective, I think we should look more broadly on this. I don't see an issue with employing members of family, of board members, as long as they're not in a position where they're reporting to someone or being supervised by that. So that would never happen. So I think we really need to look at this a little bit more closely in terms of how we implement some policy going forward on just being more specific. But I think if we can hire folks in teaching positions or that are highly qualified and to fit the needs of the district, they would not in any way, shape, or form be influenced by a board member in their supervision at the building level. So I don't see a problem from my perspective in having members of family members and board members being employed by the Fairfield Public Schools. I don't see where the conflict would come into play.
I've discussed this briefly with Mr. Testani and would like to do so further in terms of possibly raising a bylaw. Since we're doing this on an annual basis, at least for these positions at this point, but actually getting into the bylaws and working with the administration in terms of something that would be reasonable and that the board would feel comfortable with at the same time. So I think that I will work with him and probably bring forth a bylaw amendment.
Okay, just
if
because
anyone has any ideas, you know, please.
Yeah, just we revisited it. I guess this is the third time and support it, support in the past. And you know, if you came to me and said we need a crossing guard or a custodian, and that's not listed, and really, I just want to know if we should be making any kind of amendment to make it even broader than it is for other positions. Not against it at all, and agree that probably looking at the bylaw is a good idea, given our staffing shortages that we've been facing.
Absolutely.
Mr. Issa.
Yeah, just, I mean, I think this goes without saying that you and Mr. Testani would never move forward with anything without legal consult, but I can see some conflicts with board members, family members being part of a collective bargaining unit that the board votes on contracts for. So I would definitely want to get a legal hearing. I know there is statute for us not being able to work for the district, but I think that there probably are some gray lines, and we just want to have that clarified in any kind of bylaw.
From my experience of talking with some colleagues around this, what usually would happen on any type of contracts, the board member would recuse himself from voting on the contract.
Okay, is there anyone who would like to share any positions at this time, or? Oh, sorry, I'm sorry, I can't hear me, the microphones are horrible. Is there any board members who would like to announce anyone they would bring forward at this time, just per the bylaw? Mrs. Mexicanelli.
Yes, I have a family member who's interested in applying.
Okay. Any other discussion or questions? Public comment? Back to the board, all in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, district improvement plan.
Okay, as you all received, it's in your packet. We gave a brief update on different areas of the district improvement plan, which was adopted, I believe, May of 2022. We've made some significant progress in some areas. We are just beginning to touch upon certain areas that there was not significant progress made prior to my arrival, and we're working diligently to address those areas. I'm going to have the team come up and speak briefly to some of the buckets that they have contributed in creating this update. I want to say that since my arrival on November 1st, the team has not only been supportive, but has worked extremely hard in my transition in making sure that we continually focus on what is a priority through the district improvement plan and the hard work, dedication that these folks have really made it not only a positive experience for me, but also I believe a successful school year for our students and our staff. So thank you to the executive team here today.
Good evening, Janine Goss, Executive Director of Pre-K through 12 Literacy. I'm going to begin with the first bucket, which is the Academic Strategic Initiative, specifically under standards-based and culturally responsive curriculum. As we well know, that on March 9th, thank you for your support. You approved the purchase of World of Wonders for our pre-K, as well as interreading for grades K through 5, and plans are well underway to get this process started on May 30th. Next week we have our kickoff, and that's where we will convene our pre-K through 12 educators, a really good team of approximately 70 to 80 practitioners who will help and start the alignment work. They will also receive PD on that day. I will follow with the district implementation. The next topic here, in terms of the UBD framework, the Understanding by Design framework has been adopted by the district. In order to create this process and this framework, where all new curricula will lie. There will be standardized components to the UBD that is consistent across the district. And we have also started to look at that culturally responsive rubric, which is currently being worked on, and we will use that in order to gauge and compare our curriculum to the standards of that rubric.
Just like that, in the second part before Dr. Barry steps up. In terms of the gifted program, we have made some progress. I don't think we've made enough progress to be able to create a sort of official program to present to the board at this time. We will continue to focus over the summer and work collaboratively to make significant progress to have a plan in place for a talented and gifted program for our students that will be implemented in the 24-25 school.
Okay, good evening, everybody.
Do you want to yeah, we can take questions in terms of, the microphone, that makes sense. Go ahead, Jen. Mrs. Mexican.
Just one quick question, and I actually don't know if this is to Ms. Goss or the chair of the superintendent, but how will it impact the ELA curriculum work that we are hiring for a new leadership position?
We look at it as an opportunity right now to really bring someone on board with a skill set that could complement Janine's work and work collectively with her and the department coordinators at the high schools to help really guide the process. I think we have a great opportunity here to really onboard somebody immediately and submerge them into the work. So.
I completely agree. My only question was who's providing the leadership for the middle schools and high schools while that's going on? Because obviously we don't want anything slowing down this kickoff. So
the job is posted. We are soliciting candidates now, and we will begin the interview process as soon as we wrap up interviews for assistant principal at the elementary school, so we can hopefully get someone onboarded and ready to start in July.
But so in the meantime, until that happens,
Janine is
K through 12.
Yeah, well, Dr. Swingler is still on board.
Still on board.
And we are working together until her departure, which is later on in June. So we're good for him, yes.
Thank you.
And plus, I'll be working very closely with the department chairs over at the high school.
I have a follow-up on the TAG program, actually.
Yes.
If it's for implementation for 24-25 or in June, I presume that's these decisions or these options that are mentioned in here are going to be needed to be soon and build that quickly, and do you think, unless there's not going to anticipate any gifted budgetary impact?
Well, we do have some options on the table that have been solicited through site visits of other districts that have recently gone through the process. Some work with the consultants from University of Connecticut. It's just now really speeding up the process, making some decisions. Again, we have a new executive director of math that we're interested in bringing on board the decision-making process. So we intend to make decisions and choose a pathway so that if there are any budgetary impact, we will include that in the request for in the fall.
Thank you.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Rob Mancusi, Executive Director, Special Education. I'm here to report out on an update on the SEL portion of the District Improvement Plan. As you know, we do now have a district-level SEL steering committee that is overseen by Dr. Hadsitz, and next year with the new position of the Program Director of Mental Health and Student Services, that person will also assist with the implementation of the SEL plan. We are currently continue to use the DESA Mini as our universal screener. We're in the third administration of that this week for this year. For this year, we also did a lot of work with the school psychology department and the school social work department, particularly in developing a structure of how to deliver tiered intervention for students who are flagged on the DESA Mini and on the DESA. The staff at each level have asked us to do some additional work on identifying what a tier 2 or tier 3 intervention across levels or among the different levels look like. And so we're doing that work with those departments. Since Mr. Testani's arrival, we now are, the SEL team was looking at, is what we notified or noticed in the needs assessment we did. We needed a lot of work at the tier 1 level in terms of SEL support for our teachers to be able to support our students. So we have a PD on May 30th with an SEL K-12 resource called Move This World that some of our colleagues have progress or experience with. We've met with the folks from Move This World, so that is all of the SEL teacher leaders that we have at each of the buildings, as well as members of the SEL steering committee. Myself will be attending a half-day PD with the Move This World folks, and then next year we'll have a more district-wide rollout for all teachers. Additionally, this summer we're getting all of our administrative colleagues trained in restorative practices. Each administrator is going to go through a 3-day restorative practice training. And then we are targeting other groups, such as WFC staff, our SRO officers, our school psychs, our school social workers, and our school counselors on restorative practice training. And then next year, we are the state of Connecticut and Aperture Education, who administers the DESA with us. They finally have signed the contract, so we will be able to have a high school student edition for a universal screener that we've not been able to implement because the state and Aperture had not been able to come to final terms on a contract. So that's an update on the SEL. If anybody has any questions.
And just one addition as part of the restorative practice training, the 3-day training that these folks will all go through. The next level of training will then to create some restorative practice training, some SEL ambassadors at the high schools to help have that student-led SEL work start to be done as well, so that they can help within their peer groups, so it can trickle down to the student body. So that would be the next level, in conjunction with getting teachers and other staff trained throughout the school year.
Thank you. Mr. McKesey, follow-up question on to the Move This World item, or just whoever three, Mr. Testani, if you prefer. Last year we had the big presentation on the multi-year plan for SEL. And we were under, that staff was undergoing an assessment process and evaluation process of all the programming throughout the schools that's being used, and had particularly been interested in is anything with the addition of this, is anything coming off?
No, but we still have resources such as Mind Up or Second Step or zones of regulation that are utilized in some schools, may not be all schools. What we are doing, identifying a tier 2 and a tier 3 intervention, those now might be included in a tier 2 or tier 3 intervention as an additional resource.
Okay, thank you. This is the time.
Can you speak more to just the work that's been done with the rigorous course enrollment, especially since our high schoolers just went through?
Dr. Z is going to speak to that.
Just it's in this section, so.
So we know there's still significant work to be done here. We have worked with the counselors in terms of the identification of the advanced coursework or rigorous coursework. When I say significant work, it's in terms of developing the curriculum for honors and CP and making sure there's clear guidelines between them from one course to the other. We're also looking, or exploring, I should say, other AP options, pathways at the high school, dual enrollment with local universities. We've recently partnered again with Sacred Heart, and again, the difference between some of our levels at this point and getting students there. We know this begins far before freshman year, and having those plans available in late elementary and middle school is a long-term goal to succeed at this level of rigorous first curriculum.
Yeah, I view this as really, K through 12 in terms of this work and being district-wide. I appreciate the work that's been done at the high school to try to engage those students in course enrollment, but I understand the breadth of this, and you have to look at it at a lot of different angles. I just wanted to get an update. So thank you for the work that's being done, and look forward to hearing more and how we can be of assistance.
This is next.
Just a quick follow-up, as Dr. Zavajanski knows well, we talked about this in policy quite a bit, and a lot of our conversation was focused on that 5th to 6th grade transition, because parents in the know what kind of path they're setting their students on with the courses that they pick, and I think specifically something like math, but then how much of the staff work is focusing on that transition, because high school, for many students, they're then in the position of catching up, when if that potential were recognized, the family could be guided to make certain decisions. So I don't know if you could speak to that.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of information. I know we're always looking at articulation between 5 and 6, and of course 9 and 10 within there. To your point about math, we know that when parents frequently, I'll say, override the course recommendation. Sure, thank you. For that students are continuing to do well in those courses. So it is something we're working towards. I don't have specific information on it. We do go over it every year, and especially in the high school where we're removing those barriers or prerequisites as we go in the programs of study. But point noted that it needs to start far earlier than 9th grade.
But, okay, well then you raised another point of the lowering of barriers, which on the one hand sounds like a very positive thing to do, and I should be all for it. On the other hand, some of those, and now I need another word for barriers that has a more positive connotation, some of those are there for a reason. A student in Algebra 1 should not jump to multivariable calculus. There's a reason for some of those barriers. Now, I picked a ridiculous example, but I do hope that that is part of the conversation, because those guidelines are important, and not every student is always perfectly suited to every course. So.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I'm not talking about course prerequisites. I'm talking more about the things that generally hold students back from higher level coursework. Similar to the 5th to 6th grade transition, if you don't have a certain grade or a recommendation, you might not make it you might not be recommended into the more advanced math course. Similar at the high school level as well. When I say there's curriculum work to be done with that, it's articulating what the differences are in those curricular documents as well between honors and CP or AP, so that students can take more advanced coursework. Right now, there's generally one document per course, which we're working towards in the curriculum document.
So, to be clear, teacher recommendations are still being valued, or maybe are being reconsidered, and teachers are giving guidance on how to best make those recommendations. That's something that they have been using. Maybe they need to consider something different, but they're still a part of the process.
They are definitely part of the process. There were some hard limits in the Perkins study that even with the recommendation, it seemed as if a student couldn't get into a class because it was written on there.
And at the elementary school level, in terms of, you brought up the math, it's not just all the data points that have been traditionally used. We're actually looking at students that may have maybe fallen slightly below, and even groups of students that have the potential to give them the opportunity to get exposure to those higher level opportunities.
Mrs. Burns.
Oh, thank you. In policy, we've also spoken extensively about the articulation, or at least my concerns about the articulation between grade 8 and grade 9, and the course registration process that's associated with that, and talking about ways that we can give students and families agency in helping to make these decisions with or without the recommendations of their teachers. This document talks about high school, but we're really talking about the 8th grade teachers, setting the pace and the tone for what level courses these students are starting off at. So that's something that I would be interested in seeing continuing to be explored. And the education piece, we spoke about it for the math curriculum at the earlier elementary and middle school level, but it's really an education piece for parents and students as they're entering high school, which exists, but maybe can be enhanced.
We agree.
We've spent the last 6 months working with our administration, some professional learning each month around rigorous tasks, grade level tasks, all students having exposure to grade level tasks, what thinking students are being asked in the classroom, so they're more aware of what's happening in each and every classroom as they go in and do their observations, whether it's formal or informal, from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. So hopefully some of this work as it continues next year, as we continue to talk about improvement science and really focus on what is the core, structure of the core, and when they go into a classroom, to make sure all students are being asked to do grade level work, grade level tasks, and high level thinking. We can just touch briefly, that was part of the professional development that didn't make it in prior to the board packet, but some of the work obviously that we were lagging behind around diversity, equity, inclusion. We have kicked off, actually today, student focus groups were done at the high schools at all 3 locations to gather data around how students feel and a number of other data points that they will share when it's completed. There is a scheduled focus groups for teachers. All teachers will be represented, all schools and all levels will be represented next week. And then the following week, on June 5th, they'll be doing middle school student focus groups as well. And of course, tomorrow evening will be the first board opportunity for training as well. We will then kick off the school year. First with administrators for 2 days. They'll get some training with Dr. Derek Gay. He will then be the keynote speaker at our convocation of the school year, and then our work and our journey with him next year will begin as well. So looking forward to a lot of work around this in the next 18 months.
Just to follow up on the focus groups, if I may, do you think that qualitative data would be available, or portions of it, in terms of when we have our school survey presentation in June?
I'm not sure. I mean, by the time obviously they're going to gather it, I don't know how much time to sift through it, digest it, and then present us.
Might not be ready, I was just
Probably.
Also in the area of professional learning, if you look at the next one, the Literacy House Structured Series with Dr. Margie Gillis and team has been taking place this year. Pre-K teachers, speech and language pathologists, as well as our grade K teachers. They actually finished their series today, the kindergarten teachers, as well as special education teachers, and I believe they have one more session left. Next year, we're in preparations to offer the same course to grade 1 teachers, grade 2, as well as our middle school language arts specialists, SRBI coordinators, and reading team. And that will focus obviously then on adolescent literacy.
Following along on that, we kicked off the year with our design team for the teacher evaluation. It was under review. All administrators, everyone in the district participated in feedback gathering. We went into schools, used the rubrics, began the evaluation process. In that time, the Connecticut legislature put a bill forward on teacher evaluation, so we did halt the process. We do believe it will have pretty big implications if passed for next year or the year after, including the removal of rating systems, single point rubrics. We didn't want to get ahead of them on that and have to restart the process. So we are a little bit delayed on that piece in terms of getting a plan ready to go for September. That would be new and different than what we currently have.
Good evening, Kanika Ingram, Executive Director of Human Resources. So starting in fall of 2022, we're looking at the diverse and qualified candidate hiring. We are in the Office of Human Resources committed to increasing the visibility of the district through a multifaceted approach. So we're looking to redesign our website. We're actually working with the Director of Communications on the HR page. We're looking to make sure that our prospective employees and our current employees are able to really see what Fairfield has to offer. We're doing a lot of targeting in terms of marketing, utilizing digital, static billboards, radio, and print ads. 12 administrators and teachers have also participated in the state-facilitated coaching series to help Fairfield begin to create and develop a district plan to increase diversity. This has also helped us shape and form our recruitment and retention committee with these 12 administrators and teachers. We're excited about the work that we are embarking on. The first 2 things that we are going to do is establish a district-wide applicant screening process and the interviewing process to make sure that we are able to bring in the best qualified candidates. The last thing that we're working on for this school year is our partnerships. So we're looking to make sure that we can grow our own pipeline to a non-certified staff to increase our certified staff. We've partnered with Fairfield University, the Relay School of Graduate Education, the Connecticut Residency Program, which is currently in its 3rd year, and also Sacred Heart University. This will allow us, hopefully, to increase our candidate pool in all of the shortage areas.
Good evening, Zakia Parrish, Deputy Superintendent. Under the domain of growth, our schools have engaged in their school improvement planning work over the course of the year. At the beginning of the year, they actually had goals that were set over the summer by school improvement teams, and so they're actually going to use May 30th to really reflect on those goals and where they are in terms of the benchmarks that they set in terms of what they wanted to achieve for the year, and using that time to really take a look back in order to make a plan to move forward. And so, once again, over the summer, they will continue to engage in that work, looking at not only creating a plan for the upcoming school year, but looking at ways in which they can create more of a 3-year plan that can provide a continuum of the work that they want to engage in as a school staff. Again, continuing to ensure that there's alignment between their school improvement plans, our district improvement plans, as well as the individual evaluation goals that both the administrators and the teachers within the building are working on. Flipping forward to, I'm just going to jump to community and then open it up to questions on the last page. The community domain, so as mentioned previously, we are in the process of looking to revamp our website to make it more user-friendly. One of the things we are also engaging in is the launch of ParentsWare to improve our two-way communication with parents, especially with families whose native language is not English, so that they can also be able to be engaged with the school and school teams. And so in addition to that, some of the things that we have reached out to members of the community to be participants in is the Parent Advisory Council, or PACT, as well as the District Wellness Committee. So we're looking to engage members of the community to be thought partners in the work as we move forward next year and beyond.
Can you speak more to the Parent Advisory Council? Like, what is their role and what are they going to be advising on?
Well, right now it's on hold. We had initially wanted to just get parents that normally are not engaged in PTA, identify parents that can not have the pressure of having to, commit to fundraising, all those activities at the school level, but just participate in a monthly meeting with the superintendent, to be able to provide some feedback and input. Really try to, again, engage parents that are not really likely to step up in any type of leadership role at their school building. So it's kind of been on hold to see how we can organically facilitate the recruitment of those folks.
Mrs. Gerber? I mean, understanding that this is on hold now, how would parents be chosen? And would they serve a term, or are they just on for life, or how would that work?
No, just for the year. It would be a 10 or 12 meeting commitment for the year, and then we can cycle through another parent from each school for the following year, so that we can just try to engage more parents, just get some feedback. They would then obviously try to garner some feedback and some input from their network at their school to bring to the table at the monthly meeting.
So what kind of topics would be discussed at meetings?
Not sure. I mean, it would really be open to some of the early on, some of the things that they would bring forward that they would like to have be part of what the year's focus would be.
I guess I'm just not quite sure where that would fit in regards to PTAs, PTA Council, and also the Board of Education. Just what role they would serve that wouldn't be covered by PTAs or the Board of Ed.
Again, just try to engage some parents that normally are not really part of the PTA. They're not usually those that volunteer for fundraising, for different activities at the schools, and really just try to see if we can extract some more of those folks that the kids attend school here, they go to work, and they're just not really engaged in anything beyond that. I think some of that is evident in some of the PTAs that, meetings that I've attended. In some of the board meetings, it seems to be the same faces. Try to add a little bit more diversity to that group.
Okay, yeah, I guess I'm just interested in hearing more. I'm just not sure how structurally this would work. Like, would there be agendas? Are these meetings public? Would there be meeting minutes? And again, I'm just not sure how this would work in regards to what topics are covered. Like, are there going to be votes?
No, just like I said, very informal. Whatever topics that that parents think are important topics to discuss, we can plan for. Get some input on some parent workshops that maybe parents would like to see more of. I mean, we do a lot of surveys. Doesn't seem like all the surveys are always gathering all the information they need, and may not be getting and reaching some of the folks that we need to reach more consistently.
Mrs. Vitale?
I still have a lot of questions about this and what it's going to look like and what the role is. I am all for parent engagement, and having had children in the school district for decades, I think that there's avenues, either through a curriculum committee, we used to have a district-wide school climate survey committee that parents were involved in the district level, where they were evaluating data that came back from survey results, offering their insights, sharing with the community some things that they were hearing or seeing in their schools, giving input on what future surveys would look like. So it was consistent. They would report back to their school, either through the principal or through the PTA. I am concerned about the thought of just 15 parents meeting with the superintendent. I think that if we want to engage parents, it probably should start at the building level, closest to where their child is. I see there potentially being conflict on roles and responsibilities for the Board of Education, which is the voice of the community and sets policy for the district. I don't think that 15 or whatever the number is of a parent advisory council, their role should be setting policy.
There was no intention for policy to be dictated. It's kind of similar to just having a weekly coffee, and any parent that wants to show up and voice their opinions, their concerns. I mean, I think what you're describing is what intimidates some parents. Committee, minutes, votes, agendas. Some parents just don't see themselves in that role.
Well, I think that, a coffee with the superintendent, all for that. But this, advisory council, that sounds like giving kind of official and power and advising the course of where the district is going. I think that's important, but I think that there's different avenues of doing it, and I would just want more detail on what an advisory council would be and what their role would be as compared to the other organizations that are established and open to parent volunteers, and this Board of Education that is always open to public comment and engaging the public, in any way we can.
Thank you. I think this is a good idea. I don't see some of the problems, or I don't think that we have to be so worried about the details. I think there are a segment of parents who really don't get their voices heard. And I do think that there is a level of intimidation sometimes at PTAs and different committees and the formality of everything. This to me seems like a little bit less structured, more informal, allowing alternative perspectives. You could potentially get, some teachers who have conferences with parents who think that there may be some interesting perspectives there and get invitations that way. But it may allow for some new insights into what's going on in the schools for different students, and not just, the PTAs are great. I served on my PTA in the different schools, but I also know it's always usually the same group of people, and it can be very intimidating for those who can't always attend the meetings or don't feel like they fit in, or kids aren't friends with everybody else. So I do think there is a way to try to get some more information from different parents in the school, different stakeholders, and I think this could be a good idea.
Mrs. Kelly?
I was just going to say everything that Brian just said. Nothing else to add.
Just looks like we're going to want some more details and information on this as you start to develop it and what it's going to look like in the structure. In terms of its openness to all community members and just how that's going to operate. So I don't know when are you planning on moving forward with this?
At this time, not sure. I mean, it was an idea that I thought would benefit me in helping engage and hear other voices, but it sounds like that there's a lot more concern around this than there is support.
No, I just think people are asking questions in terms of clarifications, but we can, have this picture. Yeah, sorry, Mr. Pearson. Sorry, it's your hand.
A quick comment. I would be entirely in favor of this for the reasons that Bonnie outlined. There are lots of parents that we don't hear from, and there's a small segment of parents that we hear from a lot already. And the degree to which we can expand our hearing and our understanding of parent voice in the community, I'm absolutely all for. I don't see this in any way as intruding upon the work of the Board of Education, which is statutorily based. I want more voices in the conversation, not fewer.
Mrs. Tad?
I'm all for having more voices in the superintendent, getting input from as many parents as possible. I guess the wording just threw me in terms of the council, and it's seeming like a very small group of parents and not understanding how these parents would be selected and how, if it would be different parents every week or every month or however often they meet, or how open would be to the entire community. Whereas, good or bad for PTAs, that they're open to everyone in their school, and just with the lack of detail, that was really the concern. It's not a supportive, it was not at all a way of wanting to silence any parent voice or providing the superintendent the opportunity to gather more perspectives. And I would encourage, building principals to, hold coffees on their own. I know what happened at the high school. Dr. Hatzis holds coffees outside of the PTA per grade level just to hear what parent concerns are, to get, boots on the ground, a different perspective. And I know the parents look forward to it every year. Maybe if they're still doing that, you could tag along to some of those in terms of getting to know the parent community outside of PTA meetings or, who shows up to our Board of Education meetings. I just want to be very careful about, making it sound in any way exclusive to a certain group of parents, and without the detail, the title sounded very formal, and it sounded like people could potentially be excluded, whereas at a Board of Ed meeting or PTA meetings or these parent coffees that are held, it's open to pretty much anyone. That's all.
No problem. I mean, maybe we'll just go the different route and be more informal with coffees, evening meetings where anyone can come. I think being part of that at the school level, a lot of times some of the things they want to talk about is particular to the school and may not be as open to speak in front of the principal or the house principal or staff there, because some of their concerns are based on things that are happening in the school. I've had a lot of parents that have reached out and I've spoken to that have great things to say, but then there are some where their children are having a difficult experience at their school building, and those are the people you want to hear from. I think some of them have said that for some encounter that they've had over the last several months, whether it be just a hello, an introduction, that they felt comfortable to reach out. It's something that was overlooked in the past. That's all I can say.
Last but not least, we're going to go back to page 4. We have one more bucket, this one under student support. Just wanted to share again that we have made considerable efforts to continue to build our multi-tiered system of support in terms of Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions in the area of literacy. We have added 2 interventions and provided professional learning to our language arts specialists this year at the elementary level. One was for decoding and encoding for reading and spelling for the foundational skills in grades K through 2. And then we brought in rewards most recently, and that really is for grades 3 or 4, mostly 4 through grade 8. We also included our middle school teams, so the language arts specialists as well. And that is in the area of word study, fluency, as well as vocabulary, which of course impacts comprehension. And so the beauty of these programs is that there's embedded progress monitoring in there so that we can take a look at students' response to the intervention and look at the trajectory to see if students are closing the gap.
The Decision Ed software has, we're moving forward with that. It will be the main driver of all of our district data, both informal and formal. That'll give teachers and administrators in buildings information at their fingertips as they need it without needing requests. They could just plug in what they want. So we're currently working with the manufacturer on that, on what information will be put in there, how it will look, and how it will interface with the buildings. I'll continue on with comprehensive assessment. As you know, there was legislation passed, I believe it was last year, with dyslexia that said you needed a K3 dyslexia screener. We currently use STAR, which is a adaptive assessment and does not meet that criteria. We do not plan on moving forward with that, so we are currently trialing out the ones that are on the list. With that being said, we are also looking at another assessment. It's called NWEA MAP growth, which would replace STAR, essentially 4 through 8, 4 through 9, as well as with math in K1 and 2, which is not bound by the legislation. We do believe it's a better assessment than STAR, and will give us more actionable feedback on Common Core standards as well.
Can I ask a follow-up question on that?
Sure.
Do you guys have a master assessment calendar?
We do.
Because I know a few years ago, for something where we created one, and it used to be on the website, but it's not here anymore. Just the state's passing a lot of legislation, a lot of testing. I just want to get a bigger picture on how much tests our kids are taking and how often.
Our kids are taking way too many tests, and our assessment calendar next year will be pared down significantly to what is necessary to gather data to drive instruction and nothing more.
Okay, so I mean, we can get an update at some point in terms of what that vision that is.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Sure.
And just in conclusion, we will be spending a significant part of the summer not only vacationing and preparing for the new school year. We will take a look at the district improvement plan now that it is a year old. We will, make some recommendations, some tweaks in areas that we feel that we may need to do more, and where we can, in some areas where we can pull back because we seem to be in a good place. So looking forward to working with everyone so that we can really get a more in-depth look at our progress, our areas that we need improvement, continue to work harder, and some areas that we may not need as much focus for next year.
Just to the board as well, when we originally passed this plan, we said that we were going to look at it in October, December, and May of each year. Plus, we have our November very large student data achievement presentation. So I've been talking with Mr. Testani about possibly looking at the timing of all of that. Do we need October, November, December, and May, and possibly combine some of these? So just, if there's any input from the board, I'd be curious about that. I'm not really sure what the December one is for, but go ahead, Mrs. Vitale.
I would be into revisiting that. I think that we originally had that time frame in memory serves just because we appreciated that there was going to be a change in leadership, and we wanted to provide the new superintendent the opportunity to make revisions. Also, when we had talked about this plan in terms of it being a 5-year, looking at initiatives by year of what the cost implication would be, to use it also as a budgeting tool, forward thinking. So I would just ask for work over the summer, just if you, next year we're going to be doing this, and this is what it's going to look like. The year after that, we foresee having to make this change, and just a cost estimate to assist with budgeting, which also might have tied into when we had the review by the board.
Approval of minutes. Recommended motion that the Board of Education approve the May 9th, 2023 regular meeting minutes. Can I get a motion, please? Mr. Peterson, second. Mrs. Gerber. Any discussion? Public comment? Public comment? I'm sorry. Back to the board. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Committee liaison. Sorry.
Obviously, we did a lot tonight in recognizing students. I just want to just give one update. We have completed technically and pared down our assistant principal at the elementary schools to 15 candidates that have made it to the next round. So those folks are a combination of internal and external candidates. We will begin technically round 3. It's been a quite intense process that folks have been engaged in. I've been hearing the feedback at the end of each day, and overall on the candidates, we have a strong candidate pool. I think most of the majority of folks can agree upon. So we're excited to complete that process. We will be working, Nika's working with Rachel to soon make an announcement on the selection that the committee made for principal in West Stratford School, so that should be coming out public by the end of the week. And that includes the superintendent.
Committee liaisons. Mrs. Maxon-Kelly.
Just briefly for Parks and Rec, that we just wanted to advertise that Dwight's summer camp still has openings, has a lot of openings. So just putting that out there. And also, again, for those parents who have 14-year-olds who really need something to do this summer, but I believe they are still accepting CIT applications. It's a great way for the students to get involved, less of the time than being a camp counselor. So just wanted to put that out there for the public.
Mrs. Vitale.
Fairfield Cares had their annual meeting here last week. Dr. Eli Leibowitz spoke. There were about 200 parents in attendance. It was very well received. It was about childhood anxiety. And I believe that the meeting was recorded, so if anyone has an interest in learning more, it's probably going to be posted on the Fairfield Cares website.
Okay. Open board comment. Mrs. Maxon-Kelly.
Just very briefly, wanted to wish good luck to the one Burr Elementary Odyssey Combined team, which will be participating in Worlds. So I believe it's starting tomorrow is registration, and then they'll be competing this weekend. Just wanted to wish them good luck.
Okay, public comment.
Just going into Memorial Day weekend, wanted to wish everyone a happy holiday, and to our students that are marching in the parade, praying for some and thanking everyone for their support, and of course our, remembering our military and thanking them for their service.
Public comment.
You choose. Can you speak to 2 items on the agenda? Is that permissible?
Yeah,
2 items? 3? Up to 3. Well, thank you. One, just very briefly, we did speak about, during the discussion about summer work on the fields and the possibility of turf fields. I would just like to put my personal take on that as a sub-varsity coach. We very rarely get the chance to practice on turf fields, yet we go to compete in Darien, in New Canaan, pretty much everywhere except for Wilton and Norwalk. We are playing on turf fields. So we are at a competitive disadvantage because other places are practicing and playing on turf fields.
So, and also, again, we do miss practices because we specifically practice in Tungus, and I know the building behind, I'm sorry, the field behind Roger Ludlow gets very, very wet. So we do have to cancel practices at times over safety concerns. So anytime we want a turf, I don't know how many brownies that is, probably about 250,000 brownies you have to sell for $4, but I'll sell some brownies. How do we do that? Also, Nick McGarry, president-elect of the FEA. Forgot to say that part. But I would also like to speak to bucket A of the strategic improvement plan. And what I'm going to do is just briefly share a little thing, bring it back to the improvement plan, and then have a little ask. And the first thing I'd like to say is today I had the opportunity to travel to Norwalk High School to visit the Digital Media and Communications Academy that they have there. And this site visit was facilitated and suggested by our administrators and curriculum leaders to the journalism and the newspaper advisors, because this program that they have is winning state awards and national awards, and it's being reviewed by other districts as well. We're actually we're the last ones to get there. Greenwich beat us there, and so did Ridgefield. And a couple other districts win as well. But as we toured the program, reviewed the curriculum, talked to students, talked to the staff, it was clear that that program is thriving because there is enough room in the curriculum for creativity and flexibility. The learning and assessments are project-based. They're developed by the teachers using the students' interests, and they're very clearly not identical. The academy exists because the staff recognized the needs of their students, and they adjusted their teaching and the curriculum to meet the needs of the students that were in front of them. I just offer this example, and I urge the board and my central office colleagues to recognize that in the humanities, particularly, learning is often recursive and non-linear. It's simply the nature of humanities. And that excellent student engagement flows not from identical assessments, but from the ability of teachers to adapt to their students' needs. A road to success in implementing and designing curriculum is one that includes buy-in from the professional educators involved. And so I just ask as we move forward that we create together a curriculum that empowers teachers to adapt their planning to best suit their student needs.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no other public comment, then we'll take a motion to adjourn. The regular meeting of the Board of Education is adjourned. Mr. Asa, Mr. Peterson, all in favor? Motion passes unanimous. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Mr. Tostani, for the ceremony this evening. And to the Central Office for all your work.